Those of you who are on Ray's photo distribution email list already know what an incredible photographer he is. And the thousands of Princess Cruise Line passengers who have attended his lectures know how deft he is at blending commentary with his photos. He has also won numerous state and national awards for his photography. Ray is very humble and reticent to talk about his accomplishments in the past, but not to steal Kay Johnson's thunder, I'm not going to say any more, and you can read all sorts of fascinating stories in her interview that's going to be published in the Ripple at some future date. Oh, in September. Good. So make sure you watch for that. Today, we are emphasizing Ray Rychnovsky and Stoneridge Creek wildlife. Okay.
So, well, thank you, Noni. That was really a good introduction. I appreciate that. It makes me sound like I'm important. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate the support I get here. And sometimes I don't know about these pictures, and then somebody says, "That's a good picture." Well, maybe it's okay then. So I keep going. At least have a little more enthusiasm about it. So I'm going to talk about the wildlife that's here, and it is pretty amazing. When I came here, I was in Livermore for almost 50 years and then moved in here. And I've always been a photographer ever since I was a teenager. And when I did writing for fishing magazines, I had to get pictures of people fishing and the fish and that sort of thing and the scenery, but not wildlife. You know, I take a few, but not too many. But I really got into wildlife when I came in here. I have won a couple of writing awards, but I won a whole lot more photo awards. And these are outdoor writers organizations. A couple are the national, but most of them are state. So I want to thank some people. The first two lines particularly are people that have helped me identify birds. The next lines are people that have helped me find birds. Even more so than that is the foxes. We've really been able to see the foxes, because somebody's called me, like Aaron called me one night and said, "There are foxes here." Well, okay, I'll go out and see them, and I was able to do that. And Arnold gave me a really great clue where I was able to go out and take some pictures of the family of foxes. You'll see those later. The places that I really photograph are really two. I know there's more, but almost all two. And you can see here's Stoneridge Creek. Here, right in here is Creek View. Here's Stoneridge Drive Bridge, and then the Arroyo. I usually take the Arroyo and go down this way, the El Charro, and then up here, which most of you recognize the big oak tree out here. Sometimes I'll go the other way. I really like this area down here because the trail that you can see right there is really close, and I can get close to them, and they're in there swimming around this pond, the wildlife, and I can get close to them. I just sit still and wait, and they will swim around, and pretty soon they'll swim by me, and I can get a really close picture. The other place that is really key, here's Stoneridge Creek up here, and then Shadow Cliffs Park down here. This island right here is an old, decayed tree, half-decayed tree, and it's the cormorant love that for their rookery, for their nesting. But right over in here, there's a great rookery for the herons and the egrets, and I'm going to talk a lot about those. The talks, and I think this is one that's in the picture outside. This is the same picture. So I'm going to talk first about the egrets and herons, and I'm going to spend quite a bit of time on those. Then I'm going to go through the others more quickly. I'll talk about the raptors, some of the small birds, the scavengers, the turkey vultures, and the crows, and so on. Get waterfowl. I have one slide on insects, I think 3 slides on reptiles, and then quite a few slides on mammals, and I'm going to end up with the fox pictures. So, which weighs more, a hummingbird or a nickel? A hummingbird. I heard a hummingbird. The nickel weighs 0.176 ounces, And this is to scale pretty much. I've tried to make it so that's 8/10 of an inch, and these are 4 to 5 inches long. So they're to scale. You think for sure, oh gosh, it's got to be the bird. But it's not. The nickel weighs more. The hummingbirds that we have here, and there are some large ones down in the tropics, but the ones we have here are as low as 0.1 ounces and up to about 0.15 ounces. So there's not a lot to those. And how do you put all this stuff into one bird? Of course, they've got to be light. They're flying, so everything that they've got about them is to be light. Hollow bones, and most of it is feathers. So one of the birds they really like is the great blue heron. It weighs about 6 pounds and has a 6-foot wingspan. You can see when they fly that they tuck their neck up, but it has a long neck, and we'll see that later. Another bird is the great egret, and I think, well, they're kind of the same size, but they're not. This weighs is about half the size, like 2.8 pounds, and is about 5 feet wingspan. You identify the great egret because it has black feet and usually has a yellow beak. Not always, but the feet are really a big factor. Of course, it has to look like an egret. And then the snowy egret is a lot smaller bird. It is like 8/10 of a pound, 0.85 pounds. So it's a pretty small bird. It has yellow feet, really distinct yellow feet, and it usually has a black beak. So the snowy egret is yellow feet and black beak, and the great egret is the opposite. So what are these birds?
One of each.
What's the top one? Great egret. It's got the black feet and the yellow beak. And the lower one? Snowy. And you don't see the feet, but it does have yellow feet. And the great egret is quite a bit bigger. They're really stealthy hunters, particularly the great egret and the great blue heron. And they will stand for several minutes waiting for something to swim by that they can poke down and pick up and eat. The snowy egret is different. It's an impatient hunter. What it does is it moves around. It uses its feet. It shuffles the foot on the bottom, stirs up mud, and things swim away, and then it grabs it as they swim away. So it's a whole different strategy. And I like these pictures of course, over here, the great egret bringing a twig to the nest to build a nest, and then I like the way it's landing over here, and of course, pretty much all you see is the head and the wings. This is. Sometimes you get a picture that's just right, and it's sharp and just right. Well, this is one of those pictures, and I don't know why they turn out that way, but I take a lot of them, and yeah, once in a while they do. This is in its mating colors, meaning it has this green around the eye, and it has this frilly feathers, and I'll talk about those frilly feathers that come out about the middle of the egret. And so when they're catching fish, they're doing this, and when they catch a fish, where do they get it? Well, they get it at the end of the beak. That's their weapon to get the fish. So now they don't have hands. How do they get that fish up to swallow it? So they toss it up in the air and then bring it, go a little farther and a little farther and work it up. On a small fish like this, it happens pretty quickly. It turns it so it goes head first and then swallows it. But if it catches a bigger fish like this is a bit more of a challenge. It takes several tosses to get it up and then get it turned just right. Now that fish, it's struggling. It's doing everything it can to get away. It's acting like its life depends on it. And it does. So they have to turn it so that the fins will go down along the body. If they go head first, the fins go down along the body and don't stick them in the gullet. If they go tail first, the fins would open up, and then it would they couldn't swallow it. This is another egret with a fish. As you can see over here, it kind of blends into the background. I like the way it's tossing its head. You can see the trail of how it moved its head. And I think it's trying to stun the fish so that, or disorient the fish so it doesn't fight as hard. Again, we see these frilly feathers right here that are part of the mating issue. So here are a couple of egrets, and down here, the one I really want you to notice is it's got these frilly feathers out. It's holding out those frilly feathers. Now, you think of a peacock, does the same thing. Well, it has a lot more feather to display, but it's still the same issue, and they're trying to attract a mate. They maintain a common mate for the season, and they both work together to raise the chicks. And then the next year, well, they kind of may go find a different mate. So the eagles are lifetime, have a mate for a lifetime, but the egrets do not necessarily.
Are those feathers on the male or the female or both?
I think it's the male, and I don't know for sure, but I think it's the male. And maybe somebody here knows. Marie's really a good bird person, so maybe she knows. So the great blue heron looks something like this, and I showed these pictures particularly to show these feathers that come out of the head. They start up right behind the eye, go the length of the head. Now this is an adult that has these feathers. There's always two, and the chicks don't have that. I'll show you what the chicks look like as we get into that part of it. And they bring material to the nest, all kinds of different material, and I'll talk about that part a little bit more. The rookery looks like this, and the herons and the egrets share. The herons come first. They come in like January, and the egrets maybe a month later. Oh, I can tell you about these. Now you can see the top knot here of the adult. It's kind of short. That's probably a fairly young adult. But the chick, see it? There's no top knot there. It looks like it has kind of an unruly crew cut. So, can you name these birds? Great blue heron, and what kind of egret? Great heron. Yeah, it's got the black feet, and you can't see them too well, and the yellow beak. And most of those we see there are great herons. I've seen the snowies there, but not very often. And so they extend their neck when they're getting ready to land, but when they're flying, they tuck it back in like we saw in the first picture. And you can see it's kind of got its drumstick right here. It's kind of an orange flavor or color to it. There's a really good painting of a great blue heron right in front of the second library. So that if you see that painting, that's the great blue heron. And a couple more pictures showing that bringing the stick to the nest. And then over here, making a hard right turn. So you can see that he's deformed there. And fortunately, you can see his head when with all of that. So the male of the great blue heron, right here, brings a stick. It's part of the mating ritual, but it also is the nest building. So the female is over here waiting for the stick. Gets a little closer, comes up, and takes the stick. And what the female does then, she takes it to the nest and she weaves it in, and she spends some time. She works at getting a good weave into the nest to make it a sturdy nest. They're quite romantic. It's kind of neat to watch them. And so the male coming in here, and the upright head like this is a romantic. It's a romantic gesture. And I've seen this, and I've seen some of them do this, and I've seen them do this, and the male comes and they mate. And so I didn't include that picture. I thought that was kind of personal. So. But there's a lot of clicking of bills and some chatter, and they do carry on. So when they're feeding their chicks, you can see again that this is that unruly haircut that they have, and they try to they touch the beak, they touch the crop. Right here, you can see the crop It looks to me like it's full of food, and it probably is. And so they regurgitate that, and the chicks get it. The chicks grow in like 2 to 2.5 months. They grow to and leave the nest. It's really fast, and they're almost the size of the adults when they leave the nest. So again, so how they fish, you can see that the heron is stabbing a fish, trying to get a fish, and then and this may not be the same heron, but they were the same time, so probably it is. And so he has something in his beak. I can't even see what it is, but he has something in his beak, and he's shaking that. You can see the water pattern as he shakes the beak. And so that's the whole thing for this picture, is that water pattern. It was backlit, and I think it turned out that you could see the water well because of that. And they catch big fish too, and you can't see that too well here, but I've blown up the head so you can see. And so it looks like a bluegill or some fish like that. It's got, you can see the fins here that, you want that head has to go down first so that it closes the fins up, and rather than having, or closes them instead of opening them. I have lived here for 3 years and 3 months. I've never seen a green heron until last Wednesday. And there's several of these birds I've only seen once. It's kind of amazing that. So this is the green heron. It weighs about 7 ounces. It's not nearly as big as the other birds. And it doesn't have the same configuration. It's got a long neck, but not a really long neck. And these are the same birds. This is the one, just a different position the bird is in. And we've seen ring-necked pheasants. I've seen them twice. I used to hunt them when I was a kid back in the Midwest, and so I know their call really well. And and I've heard them more than that, but haven't seen them often. And this is a national bird almost. Ben Franklin thought this should be our national bird, but that view didn't prevail. You can tell the age of the turkey by at least 3 different things. One is its wattle, which is this thing right here. This is a young one. It'll grow out and it'll droop down beside the beak. You can tell by the beard how long the beard is, but not too much. They seem to all have a pretty long beard. And then you can look at the spurs, and you can tell how old it is by the spurs to some degree. When they are into the mating and showing off mating, the males do this. And you can see it doesn't look very much different from this bird when it's just out there doing its natural thing. But then when it goes into the mating phase, those feathers stand up. He droops the wings down. The wings, he drags the wing in the dirt. And it looks like a big butterball. When he does that, right, butterball, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. So there's a very distinct click when he makes this thing, and it happens abruptly. And he opens his feathers, it clicks, he closes his feathers, it clicks again. But this is our national bird, and almost all my photos are taken the 2 places I described. This one is down in Milpitas, and so I went down to Milpitas one day. I'm very lucky to get pictures of the bald eagle. And you can see it flying. The bald eagle is our biggest raptor. It weighs 9.6 pounds on the full-grown one. It has a wingspan that's about 9 feet. Now, let's talk about the biggest birds that we have. What do you think our biggest bird is? There are 2 that are almost the same size. Condor. Well, that's true, but we don't. I'm not counting condors because we don't have them in our area. But in our specific area, what are the biggest birds? We have seen them on campus, but rarely. And we see, if you go to Veterans Hospital, you will see them almost for sure. They're the wild turkeys. And they weigh 16.2 pounds, so they're big. And there's another bird that is supposedly slightly bigger, and I'm getting all this information from a book by an Audubon bird book by the author is Sibley, and so that's where I got it. And so whatever he does, whatever he says I believe. I'm sure he's close, you know. And so the second bird is the pelican, the white pelican. It's a freshwater pelican, and it weighs 16.4 pounds and has a wingspan of 108 inches. So it has a lot of wing. The turkey has a wingspan of like 64 inches. Well, not enough wing to really get out and fly effectively, but it can fly short distances. The red-tailed hawk. I thought of it as a bigger bird. It's like 2.4 pounds. It's not a huge bird. And you know, you see these, you drive along the road, you see them on the light poles often, just every few light poles there's a red-tailed hawk on it, particularly in the Central Valley. This one was along the Arroyo. It was just a little east of the Stoneridge Creek Bridge. One day I was eating breakfast, and I was with my back to the window. This is the continental breakfast. And somebody said, oh, see that bird out there. Maybe they even said, see that hawk. Well, I looked and I saw, wow, there's a hawk on the nest, or resting on the gazebo. So I ran for my camera, you know, but it was going to take me 7 or 8 minutes to get my camera to get back. And as I did, I said, oh, this is foolish. He's going to be long gone before I get back. But he wasn't. And so he was still there, and he was down on, you know this railing right here, does that look familiar? A lot of you walk on it as you go to lunch every evening if you're over in the El Dorado area. So it's right by the gazebo. And then this is a rock close to that. I got as close as I thought I dared, well, even closer than I thought I dared, but he didn't seem to be too disturbed. And so I was maybe 10, 12 feet away from it, and it took a couple steps towards me, so I got even closer, so it wasn't too wary of me. And then I was able to get these pictures when I was really close. And so you can see that I guess this is probably my favorite. And I thought, seeing the mouth and that. And you can see the way that the upper sharp jaw fits in with the lower beak. Cooper's hawk weighs about 1 pound, and so it's a pretty small hawk. One of their prey are small birds. You can see that this is one in the tree, not great photos, but this one I wanted to show because it shows the configuration of the tail. It's got a long tail, and I assume that makes it very maneuverable. One day, 10 years ago or so, something crashed into our patio window at our home in Livermore. And so we looked out, and this Cooper's hawk was just sprawled out. I thought it was a goner. So I went and got my camera, and by the time I got back, it was kind of beginning to get itself together. And then it took a little while, and it stood up, and a few minutes later it flew away. So I guess it was all right. But it was no doubt chasing a small bird, and it went right into our window. Osprey is a little bigger bird than I thought. It weighs about 3.4 pounds. So a little bigger, about 50% bigger than the red-tailed hawk. And its primary food source is fish. So it lives on rivers, it nests on rivers. But there had 2 of them that were kind of residents last year at Shadow Cliffs Park. This year they see one occasionally, but not as much. And so this is what they look like. Well, they usually were far away from the path that I took, but sometimes they would be pretty close, so I could get some close-up pictures. And so you can see them flying. Got impressive wings. And of course, if you look at the beak, it's got a pretty impressive beak as well. And it is like an eagle that swoops down and grabs the fish in its talon and flies away. I think this is Peregrine Falcon, and I'm not even absolutely sure of this. So if somebody says it isn't, I would probably believe them. But I thought it was, and so I've talked about the Peregrine Falcon. They weigh about 1.6 pounds. They're a very fast bird. They can fly 40 to 50 miles per hour, maybe a little more than that on level flight, and then they dive and go faster, so they're really a fast bird. And the smallest hawk is the American kestrel hawk. It weighs only 4 ounces. It's not very big. I love the coloring of it, and I particularly, there always has this black stripe up into its eye. I've seen a number of them. They always seem to have that characteristic. And I assume that's male and female because I've never seen one that didn't have that characteristic. So there he is again with, of course, that black stripe. And I saw that he caught something and then flew to the telephone pole right at Stoneridge Creek, or the bridge right at Stoneridge Creek. And when I look at it, when I blow that up, I can see the dragonfly wings. So it's got a dragonfly, and that's what it's eating. And they're a pretty bird, and the white tails, and then most of their body is white, but you can see some gray and black on the body. And just the upper view of him is he was flying fairly low, and I was up high enough to get kind of a top view, or he turned and I got that. And so this is the bottom view. But the picture on the right is the one that really I want to emphasize, because you can tell a white-tailed hawk, if he's out hunting, you can tell him just before very long, because it hovers. It'll stop and hover and look down looking for its prey. And so it's hovering. That's a white-tailed hawk. There's some small birds that hover, but nothing of this size. And the mockingbird. I'm going to start into a series of the small birds. This mockingbirds got really a colorful head. Usually they don't seem to be that colorful. Maybe it's something to do with mating. But they usually look more like this. They're a pretty drab bird. The wing marking is exactly the same, and so it's the same bird. And this one was up in a tree, and then it flew down to the ground, and I couldn't see it. And pretty soon it hopped around where I could see it, and it got a worm. So you can see this. It's got part of a meal anyway. And we have the red-winged blackbirds. This is a spring bird. We see a lot of these, I don't know where they start, January, February, maybe February. And then by this time, don't see very many of them. They're gone someplace else. And I titled this one, Dinner is on the Way. Do you see why dinner is on the way? And back in the Midwest, we'd see lots of robins, but we don't see very many here. I've only seen the robins a few times. And their early spring is when I've seen them. They also saw a flicker once. So never again. It didn't pose for a very good picture for me, but you can see the markings and say, okay, yeah, that's a flicker. The robin weighs about 2.6 ounces, and the flicker is 3.3 or so. And I love this bird. This is the Acorn Woodpecker. And this is one that was not taken here. This was taken at Sonoma Regional Park. And so, I think there's such a beautiful head on the bird. It's so distinct, black and white. They have the acorns. They store their acorns in a tree. And they put them in so tight that other birds can't take them out. So that's a safe storage for them. And then we see the mourning doves, and you can see how the mourning is spelled. I used to think, oh, they're mourning. We see them in the morning, but no, it's because their sound is like they're mourning. They're pretty they're very frequent, and sometimes they're pretty tame. The brown-headed cowbird is an interesting bird. I've only seen it once. I saw two, and the reason I included it is they have a kind of a different reproduction technique. And Kay is nodding her head. She knows just what it is. What they do is they will find a songbird nest, and they will take one egg out of the songbird nest and lay its own egg. And these birds grow rapidly, and they outcompete the other songbirds, and so they survive fine. The other songbirds may not, but they lay the egg. That's it. They're gone. They never know anything about their offspring again. Meadowlarks are a really pretty bird. We see those occasionally. This was in the early spring, I think. It probably let me get pretty close, and I think maybe it's because they're mating season and they're a little more aggressive and less wary at this time. And a brown toy, we see these a lot. We see them around the Arroyo, and we see them within our compound as well. Yellow rump warbler. Now, you may not know it's a warbler, but the yellow rump part of it, that sounds out pretty good. And a white-crowned sparrow. It has 3 white marks on its head, forward and back, and then these black marks in between. And we see those frequently. You will probably see those if you see something that has a white on the mark on the head. It's that. There's a brown crowned sparrow also. And so I have seen those, but these are the ones that are really common. And the song sparrow, the previous one is about 1 ounce. This is about 3/4 of an ounce. They have a beautiful song. I haven't seen them very often, but they do have a great song. Black phoebe. You see black phoebes all the time. And if you want to see a black phoebe, go out to the pond where they have the fountain, you know, that squirts up with the music. And there's almost always a black phoebe sitting on a rock there. There's also a sage phoebe, but I have pictures of that, but I didn't include them. Cliff swallows, they're about 3/4 of an ounce, and they have a very distinct marking on their forehead. I'll show you one more picture of them. But the way they make their the nests that we find, they're on the bridge abutments. And there's a lot of them at El Charro because that's an older bridge. And there are quite a few of them at the Stoneridge Creek bridge too. So they really don't have to go very far to see them. And the way they make their nest is they take pellets of mud. They go down to the river, get the mud, make a pellet out of it, put it on their nest, and then keep building it from that. And they're a colorful bird. You know, they're flying so fast, I don't really see that until you slow them down with a picture. But again, their main feature is that white forehead. A killdeer. You've seen the killdeers around here. It's a member of the plover family. The interesting part of that is they have a strategy for keeping their nest safe. And what they do is if there's an animal approaching, like a person, they will get out in front of you and they will pretend they've got a broken wing. They're dragging their wing on the ground, and you think, well, this is, you know, they've got to think this is an easy prey, so they follow it and they stay ahead of it a little ways, and then they think they've lured him off far enough, they just fly away. And I rarely have seen pictures of the chick, and so there's the chick. This is on the dam right under El Charro bridge. We see the great-tailed grackle. They weigh about 7 ounces. They're a little bigger than some of the other birds, and they have this tail that really fans out. One thing about them is they are really noisy. They make a lot of noise. I've seen them in Mexico, and they're not so good there. I've only seen these at Shadow Cliffs Park. I'm sure there are other places, but not along the Arroyo. And finches. The one on the left is a lesser goldfinch, and the one on the right is a house finch. The one on the left, the lesser goldfinch, weighs about 1/3 of an ounce. It's not very big. And then the goldfinch is about 3/4 of an ounce. But I said the house finch is about 3/4 of an ounce. And we see scrub jays occasionally. Again, this is a bird that I see at Shadow Cliffs Park. There are also a lot of them out at Del Val, but I haven't gone out that far for this talk. I like this bird. It's a belted kingfisher. I've seen kingfishers in the Midwest. I've seen them in Canada, the islands on the west coast of Canada. So they're pretty prominent. They have a wide range. And I like that they have this blue and then the red stripe and the white breast. So they're kind of a patriotic bird. The reason I really like it is I look at this head shape and I say, oh, that's Woody Woodpecker. Yeah, it's got that same feathers on the top of the head, the same crown. And we have a number of water birds that come in occasionally to the Arroyo. And the one on the left is a Yellowlegs. Now there are 2 types of Yellowlegs. There's a lesser Yellowleg that weighs about 2.8 ounces. There's a greater Yellowleg that weighs about 6 ounces, a little more than twice as big. And it has some slightly different colorations, and I don't know which one this is. Does anybody in the audience want to tell me? Good. The snipe on the far side, you can see, you could miss that pretty easy. He's pretty well camouflaged. Now, I want to talk about hummingbirds a little bit. Again, they weigh about 1/10 of an ounce, maybe a little bit more than that. This one was out on the entrance, along the entrance to our facility, our campus. And it was there doing things, and then it lifted up its wings. Well, anytime a bird does something that's different, I take a picture. I mean, maybe it's important, maybe it isn't, maybe I just throw it away. But I always try to do that. And sometimes I get pictures that are, just right, because it lifted its wings, I got the picture, and then it buzzed away. If it was, if it was flapping its wings, I had blurry wings, but, actually, if it's flapping its wings, I couldn't follow it, but if I did, it would have blurry wings. But this one's pretty good. Now this is one hummingbird. He sat in the tree quite a bit for me. He did quite a few different poses. So he thought he was a model, I guess. So you can see that he's got his tail fanned out here, got his wings fanned out here. He's got his tail out here and one wing. And right here is the tip of his other wing, so they're getting those fanned out. And then here, same bird, remember, it has these ear feathers. It looks like ears, but they're feathers. They're sticking out, and it's got a long neck. Well, these don't seem to have a long neck, but it's just the way he distorts its body. And the turkey vulture is our garbage cleaner-upper. It eats lots of different animals, and the dead animals, roadkills or something that's died, or some other animal's caught it and hasn't completely eaten it. They weigh about 4 pounds, and Sheila says this is really an ugly head. Well, I don't know. It's a different head. And it has that, the reason I've heard is that, it's eating these messy things and it would make a mess on its head. And so with this, it really doesn't have, the feathers on its head. Well, this doesn't have any feathers, so it doesn't make a mess. It's kind of strutting there. And a raven. Now, I'm 80% sure this is a raven. Could be a crow, but both of those are scavenger birds. The raven weighs about 2.8 pounds, and the crow weighs about 1 pound. So it's quite a bit larger. The reason I'm saying it's a raven is because it has this curved beak on it. It doesn't seem to be very characteristic of a crow. It has this ruffle under its chin, and that also is a characteristic of this bird, not the crow. And I may be misinterpreting that, but that's my take on it. The mallards are the most populous bird in North America. There are more mallards than duck. There are more mallards than any other duck in North America. And you get a lot of opportunities to take their picture, and sometimes the sun angle and everything's just about right. And so, you get good focus, good sharp clarity, at least in the front bird. Get a reflection and get the color of the beaks, and so that's a pretty good picture of a mallard. I was at breakfast one time, and we saw a fox out in the courtyard. So I grabbed my camera and I went, and again, this is going to be not worth it, but I looked a little bit and I couldn't find the fox. But I went over to the pond, and there were a couple of ducks, a pair of mallards. And so I started taking pictures of that. And we swim around and I can get their pictures. And this is a full frame. Now, not quite, maybe I've cropped a little bit, but this is a full frame. So it means that I can really blow this one up. And I've got a big picture of a duck out here. It's this picture of a 20 by 30, and it still has pretty decent resolution. And at the same time, the female was there, and so I got a picture of the female swimming around. Sort of the same deal. It filled the frame pretty well, and so I can really get good resolution out of it. On July 4th, there were a family of ducks out in our pond. I didn't know that. I didn't get out there. On July 5th, Sheila was walking and she saw them, so she told me as soon as she got back to the room. So I grabbed my camera and went out, and I had 15-20 minutes to take pictures of them. Yeah. So this is on July 5th. There were 5 ducklings at this time. So they're up on top of the mom is up on top of the rocks, and the ducklings are playing around trying to get on the rock. And like this. Now, how do those ducklings climb up on the rocks? I'm really kind of surprised. They jump. Well, no, not really, because if you look, and if you get really close, you can see they have pretty sharp toenails here, almost like a claw. So they can use those, and they can climb up pretty steep things. This rock looks really slippery to me. They also climbed up the side of the pool, and that's pretty straight, but it's a little more jagged, and so they maybe have a little more to get a hold of. And Mom took them out into the grass, and then they came back and got in the pond. Mom jumped in, and then these jumped in pretty quickly. And of course, one's in the water, one's in the air, and the other three, it didn't take them long to all get back in the water. There are a number of ducks, of course, and this is a male gadwall. It has some markings similar, but you can see very, very different from the mallards. And the Canadian geese, I should tell you the mallards are about 2.4 pounds, and that gadwall is a little bit heavier. The Canadian geese, they have a wide range, but in this area they're pretty large, and I think about 8 pounds. You never know when you're going to get that good picture, you know, that but I like this picture. It just kind of seems to show the story. And this is at Shadow Cliff Park. And we've all seen this picture of the ducks or the geese flying around. And so this is the mother goose, and then a bunch of goslings. But there's something unusual about this, and I don't understand it. Look at these two goslings, look at the size. Look at the rest of the goslings. It looks like they're two different families. But she's got both of them. And I don't know if she's adopted some. You know, I don't think she wouldn't have had 2 litters. So anybody that has an idea, I'd like to talk to them later. I like the hooded mergansers, and we've seen them occasionally here, not often, but we see them several times during the year. And I'm calling this their morning stretch. So it's lifting that hood up, and you get to see that big white blotch in their hood. Females are pretty birds, but she's a little bit different. As they go along, I love this picture. This is out at El Charro, and they just performed for me perfectly, so I could get the pictures. And you can see that now their hood is laid back down, and the female looks like this, and the male doesn't have quite as big a white spot. There's also a common merganser. Those weigh 2.4 pounds, the hooded merganser. The common merganser is about 1 pound more, 3.5 pounds or so. So they're a fish-eating bird, and they're fast flyers. For hunters, Fernando, I think, has said that they're not a very good bird because they eat a lot of fish, and they have kind of for eating, they have kind of a fishy taste to them. And so the female, same way, kind of, the head is kind of similar colored anyway to the hooded mergansers. The white pelicans we talked about, 16.4 pounds at full adult. So they're big, 180-inch wingspan. So they're heavy. It takes some effort to get off the water. Now, one of the things that's interesting about this, and they have this horn on their beak, all 3 of them. What that means is they're mature mating adults, and that horn comes and goes. It comes at the mating season and goes away at the end of mating season. It's kind of like a deer antler, you know. They're just there for the mating season. And like I was saying, they have to require a lot of effort to get up in the air. And they're good flyers after they get up in the air and they go long distances. But they run along the top of the water to get up speed. And you know, their wings are going, their feet are going. Boy, they're really putting a lot of energy into it. We have the double-crested cormorant, and they look like just kind of a black bird, black water bird. But if you look at the beak, it's got some interesting things there. And the eye looks like it's little beads around the outside of the eye. So they have some interesting features. And these are shadow cliffs, and they have their own tree, but they nest in other places too in that area. And the cormorant takes off like this. Again, it builds up its speed with and runs across the top of the water to get up some speed and get in the air. And there's a bufflehead. These weigh only like 15 ounces. You say, well, the big birds, yeah, they got to do that. These weigh only 15 ounces. They still have that same strategy. But a mallard is different. He just explodes out of the water. You can see these water droplets going down. Now, it might be partly because his wings are driving them down, but they seem to go almost straight up. So it's a whole different technique and just a whole different energy level. We have the western grebe. It has a red eye. I've seen it both in freshwater and saltwater. It weighs about, let's see, this was like 4 pounds. I could look it up, but it's one of the normal duck size, maybe a little larger. Pied-billed grebe. It weighs like 1 pound. And I don't know why this is a grebe. The other one is so different. And I looked at this and I thought, well, this is a chick. This is a hummingbird. Well, then I looked up the information on it, and with these black stripes on the beak, that's a mating situation. They have it for mating, and so this is an adult pied-billed grebe. And one more duck. It's the Ruddy Duck, and it weighs just over 1 pound. And I thought the beak was kind of interesting on it. It looks like its beak is too big for its body. Have you ever shot these, Fernando?
Well, no, but the nickname was not very pretty. Splatterhouse.
Okay. I guess I can see why. I have one slide on insects. I wanted to include more, but I just don't have the time. We have quite a few spiders around, and this one was on the wall just outside the golf course, our little golf course, along the drive-in. And of course we have butterflies and moths, and we have dragonflies, and they're different colored. And so I try to get them flying sometimes, but that is a challenge. Reptiles. We have pond turtles. I've seen them twice out along the Arroyo. I've seen them other places like over in Del Val, but I've seen them twice along the Arroyo. And this one is just east of the El Charro Bridge. And lizards, well, we see lizards all the place. They're in their gardens. One of the things they do is they hang out on those black bags along the Arroyo Mocho Trail. And they're a cold-blooded animal, so they have to get their temperature up to really get going. And so they do it by setting on those black bags that are hotter. And we have gopher snake. We have like 3 different types of snakes. And of course we have rattlesnakes, but I've never seen one along the trail. The only gopher snake, or only snake I've seen since I've been here is the gopher snake, this gopher snake. And this was between the El Charro Bridge and the oak tree. And we went across the trail, then coming back. It had slithered out on there by that time. So I got a few pictures of it. It's kind of slithered back down towards the Arroyo. And for the same purpose, to heat up its body. We have both the jackrabbit and the cottontail rabbit. And if you look at the ear size, this jackrabbit, jackrabbits have really big ears. Cottontail has pretty big ears, but not like the jackrabbit. Jackrabbit weighs about 6 pounds, and the cottontail is about half of that. And of course, the cottontail has his little powder puff here too. And they kind of lope, they leap along as they go. So you got a picture of them with all 4 feet in the air. And we have a lot of squirrels, and I'm not going to talk very much about squirrels. I'm going to run out of time here. I'm okay, but I'm getting close to the end. This is the Colombian black-tailed deer, and we see these quite often, and we see them in a lot of places in the valley. These are the deer that are along the inland, or the coastal mountain range. And a couple of twins here. George Mechanic told me a story that happened to him. He and Phil Wire were in the wood shop, and they left the door open and so to get a little circulation, and they heard something, and a deer had walked into the wood shop. Now this isn't a good situation, because the deer, out in the open, they're fine, but if they feel like they're getting cornered, they're going to strike out at you. And what that means is they're going to take these front legs, they're going to rear up, and they're going to hammer those front legs into you, and they're lethal. You know, they can be lethal. So this is the most dangerous situation I've ever heard of on the campus. George said we don't want him in here, basically, you know, and he hit the button to open the big door on the end of the workshop, and the deer ran out and everything was fine. But this, you know, it was not could have been a dangerous situation. And we have something that's very unusual. It's an albino deer, and they're not very often. Albinos are born, I've seen figures of like 1 in 10,000, or maybe as infrequently as 1 in 100,000. So it's really a treat to be able to see an albino deer. And you can see the albino compared to the regular deer, well, how they compare, and it really is a white deer. And this is not a fox. What is it? Coyote. So this was, I was on one side of the Arroyo. This is on the north. I was on the north. This is on the south side. So I'm shooting pretty far, and I'm enlarging the picture quite a bit. We saw him, and he was hunting, and pretty soon we saw him trounce on something. Well, this bush was not an ideal place. So anyway, that's what you can see. But he was pouncing on probably a rodent or something like that. Could be a rabbit. These weigh about up to about 40 pounds, coyote. It's a pretty decent sized dog family. Red fox, I'm going to end up with a red fox. So I like their long black legs and their such a beautiful coat. And they typically weigh like 10 to 14 pounds, and at the shoulder they're up to 2 feet high. They're pretty fast. They can run at 35 miles per hour, and they can sustain that for a while. They are territorial, but they move their territory around, as we know, and we also know they thrive in urban settings. And their meals are rodents, small animals. So Bob Middlecoff and Gary Templin were saying that there are foxes in the backyards all the time. So I went down and walked along the backyard. This is not in the backyard. But I got over there, and yeah, there was a fox there. And he was okay. He let me get pretty close. They're pretty tame. And so he kind of wasn't too upset. So after a while, he got sleepy and yawned and decided to take a little nap. And he was alert. You know, if I did something, if I did something sudden, he would know about it. He would react. They have such a beautiful coat, and then, you know, I see the triangular head, and that's kind of characteristic of a fox, maybe unique to a fox. And we like their little kits. And Arnold gave me a clue on where I could maybe find some of the fox family, and he was right. I found them. And so I spent maybe 15 minutes taking pictures of them on a Sunday morning. This is on the path, the construction road coming in to our place. It's near the north end of it. And so there were the mother was not there, and 4 kids. There were 4, yeah. Now I just have all 4 in a picture, but it wasn't a good picture, so I showed a picture of 3, but I don't have a picture of all 4 of them. So there they are playing. And the little kid, I was quite a ways back. I wasn't, you know, I didn't want to make the move, which of course he did soon anyway. But one of the kids just ran up by me, and he was on one side of the road and I was on the other, so he was pretty close. But he didn't bother, you know, he was so close I couldn't get a picture of him. But then he turned around, and I was paying attention. The other people, pretty soon he had gone by me, and I didn't see him go back. But they were pretty close. So the kids play, and they're play fighting here. They're kind of challenging each other. And then one of them takes a leap and gives the other one a left hook. And then turns hightail and runs away. And I have pictures of the kits playing together. Sometimes they seem to be really friendly, like over here. Otherwise, they're chasing each other around in fun play. Now, that's the last picture I have there. but can you identify these birds? Now this is a technique that I learned when they were doing our annual physical, and they so they wait till you forget everything, then they hit you with it again. So can you identify those birds? Which one's a snowy? And the top one is the yellow feet are really the thing that's the sure key. It's smaller, and the green egret is bigger and has black feet. So I thank you very much. I really appreciate all the support. I've used all my time, but I don't think anybody comes into the room for a while, so I'd be glad to discuss things with you or get your questions.
What happened to the foxes?
What happened to the foxes? Don't know. You know, I've asked around, and the shuttle people are pretty good, and so I've asked them and asked other people that live over on Trailside where you see them, and all I know is that nobody's seen them for about a month and a half to 2 months. But foxes move around. You know, they were under the main building for a while, and they had their kits there. But then I'm sure we were intruding onto their space, and they said, I don't need this, and they always have a second place that they can go to. So I think that's what happened. And so, you know, they keep moving around, so I'm not sure what happened.
What's the ratio of pictures taken to keepers?
1 in 233. It's high. It's really high. Arnold?
I noticed, I know you've got a new camera for that recently. Do you rely on autofocus at all, or is this all manual?
Almost all autofocus. I usually use a center spot focus because if I've got something in branches, behind the branches, I want it to focus on that and not the branches. It would focus on the branches if it were, the full focus.
Can you tell whether the fish that the birds are catching are trout or bluegills?
Yeah, it looked to me like the two that I've seen look like minnows is one, and then bluegills. That is definitely that sort of fish. They're a flat-bodied fish. So I don't know the exact species, but bluegills or pumpkin seeds or whatever the local variety is, I think.
What kind of camera do you have?
I have a camera. I have a Canon Rebel. And I had a T3i, and now I've upgraded to the new T7i, and it's better. And the most important thing is I have a Canon 300 millimeter prime lens, and it's sharp. It doesn't have the zoom, but it's definitely sharper than the zoom lens. And the new camera helps a little bit more, but the lens is the whole thing.
Where was the albino?
Oh, the albino deer is along the Arroyo Trail, and it's behind the new shopping center that's going in, just to the south of that shopping center. And a number of people, I know Fernando's seen it maybe a couple of times, and that's where we see that deer. Now, obviously, it moves around. We see these deer over on the golf course in different places, so it's not living there all the time, but that's where we've been able to see it.
Right, there are 2 albino deers.
Fernando says there are 2 albino deer, so amazing. You've seen them together.
It's really, it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm really surprised because they're pretty rare. And maybe there's some genetic thing there that the parents were more fond of that. Suze?
What is the advantage for a rabbit to have grotesquely long ears? There must be a reason. Is it for mating? Is it for...
Yeah, right. I don't know. Anybody know why the jackrabbit has such long ears?
They don't need hearing aids.
Yeah, Fernando says they don't need hearing aids. Yeah, rabbit ears.
Their motion of whatever it is that they want to do.
Okay.
Is there an even smaller rabbit here, bush bunnies, smaller than the cottontails, or?
I don't think so. I'm just thinking they're small rabbits.
Okay,
They're
just
smaller,
smaller.
yeah.
Well, that was wonderful, right?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much.
whatever.